Hey, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be making mini book Christmas tree ornaments. I think they're a great gift for friends or really pretty for your tree, and they're really easy to make, I promise. Also, I think it's a great introduction to bookbinding if you are thinking about doing it but not fully ready to commit. You could just dip your toe into it with trying these. However, if you do want to do bookbinding, I also have full tutorials on that on my page if you're interested. Supplies needed are linked in the Amazon storefront that's in the caption, and please remember to like and subscribe. Thanks. Things you'll need: a singular paintbrush. You can get these in packs like this. This is all going to be budget binding. So not all of this is going to be archival, and you need some type of chipboard harder than cardboard to make the front and back and spine of your book. You're going to cut it down to size like this. You can get this at a craft store or around the house. If you have pads of paper, this back one, you could cut this down to use as book boards, or even the back of a notebook. You need either some mull or scrap pieces of fabric, and you're going to need, for each book, you're going to need something about this size. So you can either just, this could also be substituted with cheesecloth, but depending on each book, you need about this much. If you want to have these fabric covered, you'll need book cloth, which you can make your own. You can also just buy it on Amazon. But to make your own, you just need normal fabric. This is from Michaels. Something called Heat and Bond. The light one is better than the red one, in my opinion, I found. And some tissue paper, and it's really simple. You just put this down, iron this, take a piece of Heat and Bond, iron that on top, pull off the there's a paper that you pull off, and then it's sort of sticky, and then you put a piece of tissue paper, iron the tissue paper on top, and then it's like 3 layers, and you've got usable book cloth, and it's, you know, super simple. To have these cute little end papers, you need some cardstock. You could buy packs like these. I get all of mine from Michaels, and you get lots of different things. You're gonna need 2 for each book and 2 about this size. So you can also just buy single sheets, or you could just use plain paper too. You need paper. You could also, if you want, cut up a book and use the book pages. I just tried that, and this was just like a quick little super simple attempt. Obviously the word shouldn't end there, but you could do that too, but I would have the margin here so the words don't end there. You'll need an X-Acto knife for cutting the cardstock into the pieces, and you'll need a ruler also with that. You'll need parchment paper, not that much. Each piece is going to be about this big, and you'll need binder clips. I bought a big pack at Amazon that was different sizes, which I think is good just depending on how thick this is going to be, because it just needs to go over that. And I'm using 3 per each book. You'll need some type of ribbon for this. This is 1/4 inch. I think that's a good width. I think the biggest width I would do is 3/8 of an inch. Use any type of ribbon that you want. pH neutral PVA glue, but if you want, you can just use Elmer's. If you have a Cricut, you could use that for a lot of things. If not, other ways to decorate your books. These press-on foils work really well. From Fable & Bind, I've used them to cover a lot of my books. Okay, let's get started. The first thing we need is some paper, and this is going to be the paper for your text block. So just this in here. Printer paper is totally fine, and there's a few ways that you can cut up this paper to get it to be into this shape. I used my guillotine, but most of you don't have one of those because that's for big bookbinding projects. But you could just get a ruler, mark out your amount, draw a line, and then just either use an X-Acto knife to just keep cutting them down. I really like using rolling cutter when I have my paper to cut paper as opposed to an X-Acto knife. You could use scissors, or you could use one of these. So whichever way you want to get your paper down to this size, do that. And then the next step is prepping the text block. And for this, just so you know, this book I used, the measurements were 3 inches this way and 2.25 this way. But you could use any measurement you want. You could have a square book if you want, which would mean that these pieces would be square instead. So it's just up to you. Once you have the pieces cut, you'll break them to sizes or widths that you want, just however much you feel is good. It's not really an exact page count amount. Let's see what this is. So this thickness is a little less than 1/4 of an inch, but you could also just have it be a thicker one and have this be the inside of your book. Okay, next we're gonna use binder clips. So if there's a little bit of unevenness, just tap everything down. And then the side that you tap it down both ways so it's pretty secure. You're gonna take your binder clips, one there, one there. Okay, so now we're gonna do something called the double fan gluing method, where basically this is the side that we're gonna be gluing, and you push it one way like this. So you see how that bends there and then it goes like this? So you push it like this, and then you glue, 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 glue in that direction. Glue, 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 glue. Then you will fold it back like this, and you're gonna push it the other way. Push it the other way. And then you go glue, 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 glue. So you sort of get glue on both sides of each page. And then you're gonna put it back together like this. We're gonna put a piece of parchment paper over it, and then move these clips to there and just let it dry. It's really, really simple. And I use this actually to make this method to make paperback books. I haven't done it in a while, but this works as well. If you've seen people making paperback books, sometimes you'll see them with a thermal binder, like that the libraries have, but you can just use this method. So we're gonna get our 2 pieces of parchment paper ready. This is I normally keep my glue in something like this, but if you have one of these, you would just sort of glue it on. Okay, so again, just gonna hold this, sort of bend it over with our thumb. Really easy. Okay, then we're gonna bend it over the other way. Okay, now we're gonna hold it up like this, and right now it sort of wants to come apart, you see? So you're just gonna take a piece of parchment, go like this, cover it over, push it together. So it's like that. Pinch it, move that up there, move that up there. And I like to normally use 3 at this point, so it's sort of getting a pinch the whole way. And then we're just gonna let that dry. So I'll show it one more time. Okay, now we let those dry. Now that it's dry, take this off, take this off, and now you can see that it's like the pages, they're in there. So this is a good base to your book. So the next thing that you need to do is do the rest of the text box prep. And the first thing you're going to do for that is glue on end pages. Again, these are the fun sort of whatever you want for those. So I've already cut mine down to size, and for these, so this size is going to be whatever this length is, you're going to double this length, and then it's going to be the same height. Let's pick out some matching ones for this. We're going to use this again. We just keep that there. Okay, first we're just gonna fold our end pages. And I have a bone folder, but you don't need a bone folder for this. You could use a credit card, you could just use your thumb, that's totally fine. So you just line up the 2 edges like this. Just make a crease. You really don't need your bone folder. Just line up the edges. Okay, so this is only important if the pattern is up and down as opposed to just all around. So if it's up and down, you're gonna want to mark which one is your front and which one is your back. So this one's gonna be our front, which means we are going to go F on that side right there. And we're gonna glue that here so that when it goes into the book, you're not gonna see this because that part will be glued to the cover. And then on this one, we will mark back, and it will go like that. And so now we're just gonna put a little bit of glue right here, push this down, flip it over, a little bit of glue right here, put that there, put this back over, squeeze them together for a little bit. Conversely, you can also put the glue on this. And it's just a little bit. Sort of feel with your thumbs, sort of lining up the corners. Just press like that. It's okay if a little glue comes out, and we'll just glue that one. Here. Here's the back, and this is up right now, so just to double check, this is going to go there, sort of do a little squeeze. Take this again, put that back over, put these back over, there we go. Put that together and let that dry for a little bit. Okay, so while that's drying, we can cut our boards down to size. So for this, the board needs to be the same width as your paper block. So the board, for this, my boards are gonna be 2.25, and then they need to be 1/4 of an inch longer, so that when you put your text block in, there's a little bit of overhang on each side, because that's just how books look if you look at them. And there's a couple ways that you can get your boards down. One is to just do the measurement, whatever measurement you want, you know, going up here and cutting it with an X-Acto knife. I used my Cricut. If you have a Cricut and you have a knife blade, you could just cut them out like this, and that saved a lot of time. Or you can also even use this, put it in here, get whatever length you want, draw a line, and then you can just use this to, at least at the minimum, score it so you have straight lines, and then go over with your X-Acto knife afterwards. I'm not sure if this cuts all the way through. I know it does at least like get down some of the way. I also sometimes use my rolling cutter instead of my X-Acto knife. And just to be careful when cutting boards like this, a ruler with a cork-backed ruler is a little bit safer than one that doesn't have cork backing, because see how that sort of slides around a lot? So when I'm, you know, cutting, I can slide where it's with a cork-backed ruler. It doesn't slide around at all. So I always recommend, for any type of binding, cork-backed ruler, even if this is just a little craft. But you can also just even cut these with scissors if you want. It's really, this is not exact at all. This is just a fun little craft. Okay, so once you have your boards, you're also going to need to cut a spine piece. And the spine piece is going to be the same length as this, and the width of it is going to be about the width of your text block, of this, what you're gluing together. So for me, when I cut these out, I've just been using these pieces. So I think this one is a good. I'm just going to cut that. I'm just gonna, there we go. Okay, now we're just going to make the cover part of this. In terms of amounts that you're going to need, you're gonna need to be have a little bit of space around everything. So I know right now I could cut off about right there. And I have these markers that I use for normal bookbinding. You definitely don't need them. You could just use a spare piece, cut a little spare piece of board. These ones are 5mm. So it's going to be the spine, about 5mm of space in between each of the boards. And depending on how you want to glue them down, you can either just put glue and then space them, or you can glue onto these and then space them down. But I normally like to just draw. I normally use my spacer. And for these, it's really not the end of the world if it's not exact. Because these are just going to be little things on your tree. So once if you have that sort of drawn like that, then another thing you can do preemptively is you can just trim the edges. So once you've glued these down, I'll put this here and go like that. And if you want to just preemptively, since you've already sort of done your lines, cut, leaving, this is about 3mm. So if you want, you can also just see about what 3mm is. Like that. And a little bit more isn't the end of the world. So like that. You're gonna want a spare piece of parchment paper for when you're folding things in. So we can honestly just Sometimes I do that just to make sure that they are all lining up. So now we're going to turn in the edges, and you're gonna want your bone folder if you have it. So at this point, you're going to glue off in that direction, away from, pull it up, go like this, bend it over, do a little that, and then you're just gonna push it down. Okay, and get those pushed together. Take it, flip it, because there's glue right here, so we're just gonna pull it down a little bit. Go in again. Because if you're gluing this way, you might get glue. It might go under this and get glue there, and you don't want that. So just look at that initial crease. Okay. So now this is the part where sometimes it's nice to have a bone folder, but you can just use your fingers too. Okay. So if we just went glued here and we folded it over like that, do you see how these edges would sort of stick up? So instead we glue, and then it's called like turning in the edges. So you sort of just like pinch it in, and then when you fold it over, it has a nice corner. So for this one, especially since I didn't cut perfectly, but see now, there'll be a little bump, which you can sort of push down, but this way, like that, do you see? Okay. Anyways, okay. And if you have a bone folder, this is when you would poke in, but you can also just use your fingers. Okay, last side. And you do want to sort of get glue in there, in that corner. So that's a bigger bump because I cut sort of farther than I needed to. And now if you do a bone folder, another thing you can do is you sort of go over here and you do like some creases just to sort of get your hinge gap looking better. Everyone always likes a nice crisp hinge gap because it helps sort of give the book a bookish look, I guess. I don't know how else to explain it. But again, you could also just use like a credit card for this. Or goodness, I don't even know, like the side of a fork. This. But I don't know, these are like $5. I originally had a bone folder years ago for curling paper before I even knew bookbinding was a thing. So some people just have them around in their crafts room anyway. Okay, and so now it's sort of, sometimes when the boards get a little bit wet, they want to rise up a little bit. So what I would suggest, because you don't need to do a full book press thing, but if you have a couple books or even like a brick lying around the house, this is my 50-cent Home Depot brick, I would just leave it like that for an hour or two and just let it press flat. And the reason, really quickly, that I put this down is because, see, there's a little bit of glue because we sort of glued over all of that. So just, if you were to put it just down like on the surface here, you would get glue on the surface there. So just having a little scrap piece of parchment helps. Okay, so just leave that and then your case is done. For the next step, we're gonna finish prepping our text block, and for that, you're gonna need your little piece of mold and whatever ribbon you want as the hanging ribbon. So for the ribbon, however long you want your hanging thing to be, so if you want a longer one, shorter one, we'll just cut that for now. This is what, 11 inches? I'm not gonna use this much though. And then this little piece of mold, you're gonna want it to be a little bit less long than your text block because it's going to go over like this. And you don't want any hanging off on either side, but can be almost the length of your text block. So this is almost 3 inches. And then, let's see, I have mine at an inch. I think probably just to be, maybe make them each like 1.5 inches. This one's pretty thin, but it will work because the most important thing is you're gonna line it up in the middle And then you just want a little bit hanging off on each side because this is what's going to help hold the book in place. Take these off, but we're going to keep them because we're going to put them right back on, this included. So since that's facing up, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to glue our ribbon down, and you want your ribbon to be at the top like this. And I'm going to cut the ribbon down a little bit. And for now, I'm also going to put these on the bottom just so this sort of stands up on its own. And this doesn't look that great, but it's okay. This is not, it's just a little craft. Okay, so I like the ribbon. You could do whichever way you want, but I sort of like that when it makes the loop like this. So I'm gonna put a little bit of glue down, put this one down, put more glue down, put this down, and then put the mole on top of it. And the ribbon doesn't really like staying like this that well. So I sort of put the mole on top and then put this back on and squeeze everything down, and then it will glue together and it will be fine. Glue all the way down if you want. But first we're just going to, if we want the ribbon like this, we're going to put this one down there. And this ribbon is a little thick. More glue on top of the ribbon. The rest of the glue down for the mole. That there. Put a little bit more glue down. The mole. Okay, most important is just to sort of get the ribbon down. The rest of it, so, okay, just pull it down. And then I'm just gonna sort of push the mole into the rest. Like that. Once again, put this back over, push everything down again, clamp it all back down. There we go. Okay, so the video that I filmed in horizontal did not go well. So instead, I'm just going to walk you through it and what I filmed for the Reels and TikToks. Basically, once you cut out your Cricut design, you can choose whatever you want. And if you guys want a tutorial on how to do those Cricut designs and for these books, let me know. And I can post a separate little video on that. These guys were really simple, but basically you're just going to take your design and weed it and then iron it on. And for HTV, the most important thing that you guys really need to know is that some HTVs are a cool peel and some are a hot peel, which means sometimes you iron it on and you peel it right away, but other times you'll iron it on and you have to wait until it's fully cool till you peel it off. And for this one, this was a cool peel, so I like to iron it, press down with a board just to give it extra oomph, and then let it cool. And then once I've peeled off that little plastic, then I go back over with parchment paper on just the naked cover and iron it again just so that it really seals it in there well. So if you don't have a Cricut, another option are these Fable and Bind foils that I talked about at the beginning, and I really like them for rebinding books, and they're really nice and they're really fast. It just takes 5 minutes. Basically, you'll just cut up your design and you're going to take off the white part that's behind the gold foil, and then you're just going to rub the design, the gold part down. You need to pick up a corner. It works best if you're holding up a corner after you've done the initial rub in, and then you sort of work this thing. This little white thing actually comes with the pack, and you just sort of work it back and forth. You get this really intricate design, something that you probably couldn't actually achieve with a Cricut because weeding is just impossible. Each pack I think is $25. I have a code if you haven't ordered them before. That's my bookshelf. I don't remember what you get off. It's something. And they're also available on TikTok Shop. However, the one that I'm using right now, the Fireborn pack, which also is really great for fourth band, etc., I think they're sold out of that. But there's another one, a Regency one, that has lots of little decals that I think is really nice. And it has lots of bows and frilly and a little bird. And it's just, that one's also really cute. Okay, the last step is attaching your little text block to your case. And so for this, you're gonna need 2 pieces of scrap paper that are bigger in width than your text block, and then 2 pieces of clean parchment paper. You also wanna mark which way is up on this, so that it doesn't go in upside down if you've already put something on the cover. So what you're going to do is just place this in here, close it up, sort of scoot it in so it's in between. That's gonna be the final product. And so you're gonna take your piece of scrap paper, open up here, put it in here, put it down like that. Again, just checking. You're gonna glue under here, on top of here, and glue, again, we're gonna be gluing off the page, not in, because if you glue in, you're gonna get glue inside here. And then when we press it together, you'll have glue on this. So I'm gonna glue off, under, glue that down. Then you're going to lift this, take that off. Oops, it's okay. If that gets a little messed up, you can just sort of put it back, and then you take your clean piece of parchment paper, hold in the book, and just press it down. And just repeat it on the other side. Take this out, scoot it out. Take the clean piece of parchment paper and you just sort of push the text block back in while you roll it down. Now, normally when I'm doing this on a real book, I put it in a press, but you really don't. You could just put this down here and once again, use your trusty brick or a couple books and just let it dry like that. When I'm doing normal books, I dry overnight. I think for this, you could just let it dry for a couple hours and it would be fine. It's ready to hang on the tree.